Hey UConn Nation, it's KK Arnold here. If you're looking for the latest UConn women's basketball content, go subscribe to Listen Up to Phil and Ryan. Go Huskies!
Phil and Ryan, listen up. Yeah, Ryan, like the video, comment, subscribe away. Hey, at the very least, yeah, definitely comment on this one. Ryan, it was a great day for me, a great morning, waking up, a great day, a great night until it wasn't. Literally coming on just minutes after this shocker. I'd call it a shocker. Although we got some great words hopefully of confidence coming up from you. I really don't know what to say here, but try the best I can after a shocking 82-67 win over UConn. Ryan, to say the least, I just want to shout out to Notre Dame. I really do. UConn fans are going to hate me for this. I can't recall, even last year, we talk about St. John's or whoever it was, right? Upset. I think out of respect, I'm almost sure. St. John's upsetting UConn. Some of the big losses that UConn suffered last season. But man, you can't really get into injury talk when you talk about this loss for UConn because, as I understand, Notre Dame was just as depleted with players sitting on the bench as UConn was.
Yeah.
I know you got a lot to say about Nika Mule. Her not really. What does she have tonight, Ryan? 0 points, and she fouled out of the game. So that's a lot right there in and of itself to just say. I'll tell you one thing though, Hannah Hidalgo. Let me tell you what, Ryan. And I'm sitting back thinking to myself, although I still love Paige Beckers, right? I'm sitting back thinking to myself, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers. Why am I not hearing more about? Maybe it's just me. You tell me. Everyone tell me. Why am I not hearing more about? Not even Hidalgo, Citron, Westbell? Because let me tell you, since we've been doing this podcast, I cannot ever recall a time where I want to shout out major respect to the opponents of UConn playing tonight, shouting out to Notre Dame for a great performance. Ryan, they went into one of the most hostile basketball environments anyone can go to. Get this, men's or women's basketball, and they just showed us what a complete team win is like. You can go all you want, and I'll tell you this, you're probably like, Phil, why are you saying this on the podcast? Nobody's going to watch anymore. Look, this is a podcast, Ryan. This is a talking sports podcast. Let me tell you what, right now, we're hitting February, right? We're hitting February. We've seen a lot of drops here recently. We've seen a lot of increases with people coming through. Let me tell you something right now. The narrative going forward, UConn cannot, maybe something dramatic can change in March. As you and I and everyone watching this, hopefully a lot of UConn fans hope so. The narrative, you even said it, whether you want to admit it or not, right here, right now. The narrative, when you take away, you break it down for me. When you take away all the little pieces of the puzzle and what happened in this game, great performance from Notre Dame, the great performance from Connecticut. They just couldn't keep up with the talent. I mean, talk about raw talent on that side of the ball for the Fighting Irish. UConn cannot compete with top-level teams in this country.
It really seems like Notre Dame has really had UConn's number for really the past 5 or 6 years. They showed Notre Dame defeated UConn in back-to-back Final Four games, I believe 2016 and 2017, if I have those years right. So Notre Dame the past couple of years has really had the Huskies number, unfortunately. Hannah Hidalgo, I believe what she scored a season high, career high, 34 points tonight.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to Notre Dame. But before I get into the game recap, just like you said, coming into Gamble, handing UConn their first loss at home. Just an incredible performance by Notre Dame. It really was. But let's get into the game recap. And before the game, UConn honored its 2003, 2004, 2013, and 2014 national championship teams. A lot of legends in the house tonight for this old school rivalry game. Competitive, a complete whiteout in Gamble Pavilion tonight as well. And to start the game, UConn really looked stagnant on offense, a lot of sloppy passes, but a very competitive game really the whole way through. Hannah Hidalgo, Maddie Westfeld knocked down a couple baskets for the Irish, and the first 5 minutes for UConn didn't really go too well, but it's something about the final 5 minutes. It seems like after the media timeout, when the Huskies really turn it up and go on these huge scoring runs. And tonight it was a 13-2 run to close out the quarter. Aaliyah Edwards playing really well. UConn up 7 points going into the second quarter. The Husky lead, though, quickly replenished as Notre Dame went on a 12-0 run of their own to start the second quarter, which would later extend into a 22-4 run. It's not like UConn was playing bad basketball. I think it was really more about how the Irish heated up and found their shots. Really, to me, started to play with a lot more energy and effort. Paige Becker's fairly quiet in the first half. I wanted to see her take more control of her shots and of the game. But Notre Dame really was doing a good job overall on defense on everybody. But I think specifically Paige Becker's denying her and limiting her of getting the ball and her shot attempts. And I think UConn was really missing Nika Mule as well in the first half. Mule picked up two early fouls in the first quarter, didn't come back in until the game until the media timeout in the second quarter. And right away, she picked up her third foul. So she had to sit out for the rest of the first half. And not having her defense and leadership was very noticeable at times in the first half. Huskies started turning the ball over as well. Hannah Hidalgo banked in a three to end the first half to give Notre Dame a 44-35 lead, and all the momentum going in Notre Dame's favor going into the second half. And Notre Dame 13-0 when leading at halftime this season. Meanwhile, UConn 0-3 when trailing at halftime. So, can something change? Unfortunately, it didn't tonight for UConn, but something did change a little when Nika Mule returned to the lineup. She got a steal. UConn was able to set up their offense a little bit more in the half court. They looked more controlled overall. And Aaliyah Edwards was on an absolute tear. Dominant all game, but she really did flip a switch in that third quarter. Just unstoppable. The two-way action between her and Paige, just perfection, really. But a very even game the whole way through. Turnovers, field goal percentage, a lot of the numbers really look the same going into the final quarter. And the Irish with just a 3-point lead. But it really wasn't a good start to the fourth quarter. Nika Mule still in the lineup. She already had 4 fouls at this point, and just a minute into the fourth quarter, unfortunately, she fouled out of the game. Paige Becker is still struggling to find her shot, just really unable to get anything to fall the whole game. Hannah Hidalgo is still putting on a show. She's so quick with the ball. UConn really had trouble guarding her the whole night. And Notre Dame, absolutely went on a tear in the fourth quarter. UConn just couldn't stop them no matter what they tried to do. Hidalgo, Westbeld, Sonia Citron, really the main contributors in the fourth and really the whole game as well. UConn unable to make any shots down the stretch, and yet they lose to yet another, a top 15 team, losing their first game at home 82-67 to Notre Dame.
Couple things to keep track of, Ryan. I wanted to bring up to you in the beginning. They said Paige. Now, I'm not, stomping down the media. I mean, they're doing their job here. Paige, but all they have was like what they have on Fox. And again, this had to come, on Fox on a Saturday prime time night. As I even put no pressure on anyone, but as I, driving home this evening and see the pregame on people's TVs, they have their blinds wide open, and they're just blasting UConn basketball, even up here in Maryland, man, they love it. It's no secret, man. This was a prime time matchup, even for people that do not watch women's basketball, Ryan. They were tuning in. So, man, it just has to come at these times, right? It's crazy, man. But Paige with an off night. Well, yeah, that was true. But let me tell you, it's not just an off night because, Ryan, Notre Dame did, again, an incredible job. When you execute film study, film watching, and take that out, practice all week, and bring it out to the court, that's a completely different story. How many teams, Ryan, do you think that play in as hard as they can, watch film? You can watch film all day and all night. You can lose sleep. You can gain sleep. You can eat right. You cannot eat right. There's a million different options you could be for to prepare for a team like UConn. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame did it. The execution was brought to the court. They prepared, they practiced, they showed up. We talked about hostile territory. They did it. The film study, all that came together and they did it. All right. Citron, you mentioned her with the jet sweeps inside to come, specifically one in the fourth quarter, to come rescue her team when we thought that Notre Dame was under duress with the ball. Like, that's how good they were tonight. UConn was doing a great job, like always, defensively, swarming the ball. But, hey, it's, again, them little plays, Ryan, and especially in basketball, where it just sometimes, and again, terrible night. I mean, not to make anyone feel bad, but, man, with the legends in the house, and I was just so pumped up, right, when this game started, and then this. Yeah, and I believe me, I didn't forget anybody. Aaliyah Edwards. I wanted to, man, much love to Aaliyah Edwards. It's almost like, hopefully, she heard me, a couple episodes ago. And the beautiful thing about it is, especially Ryan, when you're talking to me, yes, I look like, especially right now, and I admit it. That's the beautiful thing, right? I admit I am a complete fool for the comment I mentioned about Aaliyah Edwards disappointing this season. Man, look, she showed up tonight. Even though it was a loss, she did her part, and congratulations to Aaliyah Edwards. The mid-range shots that I talked to you about, she showed up. She knew she had to show up. She put the team on her back tonight, and I cannot be more proud, more proud than I am tonight. Very proud of Aaliyah Edwards and her game tonight. Incredible job. Let's go over to some comments, Ryan, and then we will get on out of here. Jason D'Amico said, this game is hard to predict. It all depends on which UConn team shows up. If the freshmen play at the high levels we have been treated to, then UConn wins big. If not, UConn still wins, but only because of the Paige factor. Peace. P.S. At Phil, another factor about Edwards. It would not surprise me that she holds back during these next couple months to make sure she gets to the dance healthy, because without her, UConn has no shot. Well, Ryan, again, was I wrong? I told you, take the star player out of the game. They couldn't take Hidalgo out of the game, but they took Paige Beckers out of the game, and you saw what happened. But again, Ryan, I'll remind you again, the narrative down the stretch, you already know, no one, not even you, can disagree with this, I wouldn't think. Now, I'm not disregarding all them other wins, this big winning streak that we've had, but UConn cannot win against top teams this year.
Well, it just seemed like tonight too, the pace of the game really didn't favor UConn from the start, and I think that really affected them some too. It just seemed like they couldn't really force a lot of turnovers, and again, in my opinion, I think that has a lot to do with Nika Mule and just her defensive presence. I said in the last check-in that I kind of expected Nika to be guarding Hidalgo or Westbell. And when she was in the game, I think she was guarding Hannah Westbeld for most of the time. But unfortunately, she had fouls for most of the game and really couldn't contribute, which was really unfortunate to see. And I think maybe if she doesn't pick up those two early fouls, I think the game does go a little bit differently, especially in the second quarter, and a lot more differently in the fourth quarter. But unfortunately, that's not how the game went, and I think how the game went overall was definitely not in UConn's favor, just in terms of the overall pace of the game. So, I think that played a factor in why UConn lost tonight as well. But just, Citron, Westbeld, Hidalgo, they really took it into their hands kind of completely tonight. All the other starters, I was looking at this. They only had one shot between the other two starters. So, Citron, Westbeld, Hidalgo basically took all the shots for Notre Dame tonight, really took it into their own hands. And there's really not much UConn could really do in terms of the defensive end to really stop them.
Yeah, they took it no respect towards UConn, none at all. We cover UConn. We love talking UConn women's basketball, but they took it personal. And you tell me how many teams do not take it personal when they play this great program in UConn, a city of champions, right? Marcia Clark. I know Nika will get the assignment, but I want to see the KK Hidalgo matchup. They are both so quick. Don't sleep on Syracuse. They are a great team. Notre Dame will be ready to play and hungry for a win. So this should be interesting matchup. UConn needs this win. If they shoot the ball well and get out in transition, they should win the game. Can't play slow against Notre Dame's size.
It did end up being between Hidalgo and KK for most of the game, and I think KK did what she could to try to guard Hidalgo, but unfortunately it didn't really match up too well. But they did go back and forth a lot during that game. Hidalgo made a couple shots, and then KK made a three at one point, drove the lane. I think KK played pretty good tonight, especially on the offensive end. A lot of bright spots on UConn, I'd say, for the offense, but unfortunately couldn't make the stops enough of the time on defense to really, get out in transition. I think that's another thing that kind of goes along with the pace. Pace transition. We talk about UConn's speed, really unable to show that off tonight. And UConn as well really struggled from deep. And I think that, we said that earlier in the year, take more 3-point shots. They really did it well during this huge win streak they had making threes, but unfortunately tonight couldn't really get the ball to fall through the net.
Ryan, this is what makes last check-in so interesting and so fun. Not making a joke of anyone. It's just we love to get predictions and we love to see who's right and wrong. I mean, that's just it's a sport, right? Jerome Danielson, one player ain't beating UConn. Ask Clark of Iowa. Okay, Ryan.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hannah Hidalgo, she did her thing tonight, definitely, but I don't want to discredit what Maddie Westbeld and Sonia Citron did.
Yeah.
I think it was really those three, but Hannah Hidalgo definitely, like you said, took it took it personal for most of the game, and really kind of fed off the UConn energy of all the fans, and I think that when an opponent steps into Gamble or Hartford, wherever the game is held, I think it really affects the opponents a lot. But I think Notre Dame did a good job tonight, really taking control of the crowd and kind of using it to their advantage, to be honest. And really, it fired them up. It gave them a lot more energy going into the second and the second half as well. And it really seemed to feed off of that. And I honestly, I think it helped them most of the time really go on those long scoring runs. Yeah, they just played pretty much perfect tonight.
Well, it seems like if you were not scoring in double figures, Ryan, you weren't going to be a part of the Notre Dame party tonight, because listen to this. You had 1, 2, 3, 4 different players scoring in this game tonight, all in double figures, 23, 15, 34, and 10 for Notre Dame. The other players, guess how many? 0.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you weren't scoring over 9 points, you wasn't a part of the party tonight. How about one more, Ryan? I can't believe Phil, this is Bon Riley. I can't believe Phil and the destructive one. UConn wins 13 in a row, and you're not happy with Aaliyah and Nika. In spite of being double and triple teamed, Aaliyah has 5 or 6 double-double games in a row. Nika's role has changed because everyone's has. KK is more the point. Ashlyn has replaced AZ pretty much. Paige is Aubrey. Nika is kind of Caroline. And it works because they are all shooting well, including Nika. Why are you being so negative? Okay, well, here, I'll say this much, Ryan. Not being after what I saw tonight. Okay, well, I'm not going to be negative, Ryan. Let me tell you this, though. Here's how I'm not going to be negative. I am holding out hope for when? Not next month, but the month after that.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is it just really shows the how young UConn is and the freshmen. I wouldn't say they're unable to handle the moment, but I think just going up against the top tier teams, I just think that the lack of experience shows sometimes, and I think especially when we get into March and hopefully make a deep run. I just really think that the lack of experience and
Yeah.
piled onto that the lack of depth is really the two main factors is what's going to hurt UConn, and it definitely has all four of these losses, losing to three teams that were ranked inside the top 10, and of course Notre Dame ranked 15th. So it's really unfortunate that UConn really can't pick up a signature top tier win that we keep talking about. Hopefully they have another huge chance. Obviously, Super Bowl Sunday, February 11th, when they play the number one team in the country, and of course I believe they have to go to South Carolina for that game. But
Right.
they'll at least have one more chance to do it before March. Hopefully they can get it done. But I think at some points it does hurt the confidence a little bit when you can't beat a really top tier team, when you do play them.
All right. I know this is a basketball podcast, Ryan, but let me tell you. Well, obviously, our attention turns over to Villanova on Wednesday, but let's not forget the city. The city, no, not the city, the state that you're sitting in right now, Ryan. Let's turn our focus, out of all respect, to the AFC Championship game tomorrow on CBS. It's Phil and Rye on Listen Up.